In the series that I'm doing, the Magickal Foundation series, we've covered stillness, which is a way of stilling the mind, of quieting the mind. We've also discussed a type of meditation which I've called active meditation. And this is a type of meditation where you are pulling in energy and moving energy around the body. So you're building up energy and directing it. But they're all different forms of meditation for different purposes. And one that I want to discuss today I've called moving meditation. And this is quite vital, especially when you go into ritual, because when you're in ritual you want to put yourself between worlds and get yourself into an alternate state of consciousness. And when you're in ritual, you're moving around, and therefore you want to be able to use that as a form of meditation to actually bring yourself into that state of consciousness. And that's what I want to discuss today. So let's get into the video. Okay, so moving meditation, as I said, is it's a form of meditation where you are still stilling and quieting the mind through movement. And because of the movement, you're also building up energy. And through that whole act, you are then putting yourself into an alternate state of consciousness. So this is quite vital, as I say, when you're doing ritual. Because as you're doing ritual, you are purposely moving around your ritual space, and each movement needs to be purposeful. You need to do every movement slowly and have purpose behind every movement, even if it's just picking up the goblet, for instance, or putting salt into water. Every single movement should be slow, purposeful, meaningful and conscious, and through that you actually bring yourself into an alternate state of consciousness. And through that alternate state of consciousness, you're then moving yourself between the worlds. So you're moving from the outer world to the inner world, which is where you need to be when you're doing ritual, obviously, because you are removing yourself from the mundane physical world and moving yourself into that space where you are the creatrix, and you are therefore creating your world, your microcosm. So it's as I say, it's this whole shift of moving from one state to another, and you do that through your movements itself. Now, we've all experienced this moving meditation and this shift in consciousness, and it's usually called daydreaming. Now, if you drive a car on a regular basis, you may have had instances where it's usually when you're repeating the same route, the same pattern, the same journey. So like driving to the office and back, for instance. Every single day you drive the same route, and eventually what happens is you get so used to the route you don't even need to think about it. And quite often you'll find yourself going into a daydream, and you suddenly realize that you don't remember the last 10 minutes of your journey. And you're perfectly safe. Your Nephesh, your lower self, continues to function during this process. So you're not in any danger, but you go into this daydream and you just completely remove yourself from this world. And you're still actively moving, you're still actively, I'm not sure if I can actually say consciously doing whatever it is you're doing. But it's that repetitive motion, that repetitive thing that you're doing that actually puts you into this alternate state of consciousness, into a daydream. But you know that you're still actively moving, actively doing your thing, your whatever it is, whether it's driving a car, whether it's washing the dishes, whether it's whatever it is that you're doing, where you still continue to do it. I mean, if you drive in the car and you can't remember the last 10 minutes of your journey, you would have stopped at traffic lights. But you can't remember any of it because you were in this daydream. Now, what you'll also find is, let's go back to the example of driving the car and going into a daydream. You can actually do some incredible magic during this time. So, while you're driving, you go into your daydream, into your altered state of consciousness, and because you're not focused completely on the action that you're doing, the driving itself, and you're not completely focused on your actual daydream and the magic that you're doing, you tend to not analyze. You're sort of in between those states, but because of that, you don't analyze what you're doing. So your analysis of the magic that you're doing and the work that you're doing while you're in that daydream state is a lot more potent, because you don't lust after results. So you don't start pounding it with other thoughts that, maybe it should be done this way, maybe if you did it this way it would work better, maybe if what you're doing actually won't work. That happens quite often when you're actually doing spell work and magic. You do lust after results, and therefore you kind of impact the original intention, and it short circuits it basically. But what we want to try and do, obviously, is do this consciously rather than just subconsciously. So not just when you drive in the car or doing something repetitive that you do every day. You want to actually do this consciously so that you can have control over what you're actually doing and the magic that you're doing. So what you can do is a walking meditation. And with the walking meditation, you're going to be doing a repetitive act, which is the walking itself. And then what you can actually incorporate breath work into the walking and the actual rhythm of the walking. And it's the repetitive action plus the rhythm that actually puts you into that altered state of consciousness. So with the walking and the breathing, you're going to be doing ratio breathing, or sometimes called box breathing, where you split your breath into 4 parts. So you've got your in-breath, your pause, your out-breath, and your pause. Now, because you're actually exercising, you're walking, you won't want to do something extreme like breathe in for 16 counts, hold for 8 counts, breathe out for 16 counts, and hold for 8 counts. It's going to be a bit shorter than that. But what you can do is you can time it with your You can time it with your steps. So as you're walking, split it into 4-2, 4-2. So take 4 steps as you're breathing in, and then hold your breath for 2 steps, breathe out for 4 steps, and hold for 2 steps, and then just continue that pattern. Just experiment with it, see what works best for you and your lung capacity at this stage. Obviously, as you do breath work, I'm going to get more into breath work and pranayama, etc. in a later video, but the more you do breath work, you find that your lungs expand more, you're able to breathe better, taking more oxygen, hold the breath for longer, and stuff like that. But for now, just do what is comfortable for you right now. So if you need to do 2-1, 2-1, that's fine. But try and get it to a point where you are between breaths. You're pausing for as long as you can. It's that between breath state that becomes quite important. It's a no state. We could say that it's you can relate it back to the quantum gap, or a no state, a nil state. It's a between area. It's a liminal state. So you breathe in, which is an action. You pause, and then you breathe out, which is an action. So you've got active and passive breathing. So in that pause, either between the in-breath and the out-breath, but especially you'll find between the out-breath and the in-breath, that pause is your liminal point, your liminal state, your between state. And this becomes very important. You'll find this when you get more, you go further into your Magickal practice. That no state, the nil state, the quantum gap, it's the place between, and between is a very important place to be. It's that state between worlds. It's a state where you can actually move between worlds. There's quite a lot, especially if you go into shamanism. You find that they speak about the liminal points quite often. It could be twilight, for instance. As the sun's going down, there's a certain point, if you gaze at the horizon, as the sun's going down, there's a certain point where you get into that liminal space and you can actually step between worlds. So that between state is very important. So keep that in mind as you're continuing through your practice. But as I say, with the walking, you want to get into that rhythm. So do the box breathing, the ratio breathing, and time it with your steps and get into that rhythm. So you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, and you get into a rhythm, and you're doing something repetitive. It's also like beating a drum or clacking stones, or again something shamanic, where you're creating a rhythm and a repetition, which brings your mind into that altered state of consciousness. If we actually look at this in different terms, if we look at the Nephesh and the Ruach, the two parts of the soul that we speak about in Kabbalah, the lower self and the middle self. The lower self is your active, irrational self, whereas your Ruach, and your lower self retains memory, but your Ruach is your passive self. It doesn't retain memory, but the Ruach is the rational part. But they sort of work together. But what you want to try and do here is almost separate them. So your Nephesh continues to do the action, but your Ruach is then is separating itself and moving sort of beyond time and space. But your Nephesh will still retain the memory from that action, that whatever the Ruach is doing. Now, there's also something spoken about in shamanism, and specifically in Carlos Castaneda's work. It's called a not doing. And a not doing is basically reversing your habits. I'm talking about small habits, I'm not talking about big habits. Small habits you don't even realize you do. Such as when you put your pants on in the morning, or you put your shirt on in the morning, you put one leg or one arm in before the other arm or leg. So if you put your shirt on, I usually put my right arm first and then my left arm. With a not doing, you reverse that. So you consciously change it. You consciously put your left arm in and then your right arm. And this actually breaks the pattern. And when you break the pattern, you then start moving into those alternate states of consciousness as well. And if you do this continuously, so I mean, think about it from the time you wake up in the morning. I'm going to say what side of the bed you get out of. Usually we don't have a choice, but you could always shift yourself down to the foot of the bed instead of getting out the right or the left of the bed. And then you get up and you maybe put some clothes on. When you put the clothes on, put them on in a different order. Put your arm in a different order, put your legs in a different order. And then you may go to the kitchen and put on the coffee machine. instead, and then go to the bathroom and brush your teeth. Instead, do it the other way around. Go to the bathroom and brush your teeth. If you brush your teeth with your right hand, brush your teeth with your left hand. So think of every single little act that you do and change it, break it. And the main reason for this is that we get into all these little habits and we unconsciously do them throughout the day. And this pulls our awareness away from the energy that's flowing. I spoke about this previously, the energy that flows in and out of everything and connects us with everything. It brings our awareness away from that energy. Whereas if you start doing not doings on a continual basis, then you bring your awareness back to everything, every single little thing you're doing. And by bringing your awareness back, it brings your consciousness, your awareness back to the energy that flows through everything. And obviously through this, then you reach that altered state of consciousness, or that state of awareness, really. And it's that state of awareness that you're after. So the moving meditation or the walking meditation is kind of between these two places. On the one hand, you are becoming aware of what you're doing, because think about it, if you're walking somewhere, you're not actually aware of your steps, you're not aware of your breath. But if you bring your awareness to those things, to the steps and to the breath, and creating that rhythm, but then through the rhythm, you are then bringing yourself to a place you bring yourself into that altered state of consciousness, that daydreaming, and you continue with the action, you continue with the rhythm, but your consciousness then moves into a daydream state. So when people actually talk about daydreaming, they usually consider it sort of a bad thing, you know. Kids daydreaming is often thought of as a bad thing, and it's not. It's actually a very good thing. Daydreaming states can be very beneficial to you, to your child, to any person. Daydreaming is not a bad thing. In fact, in shamanism, it's considered very, very beneficial. And quite often when we go down these magical paths, we find that we have to bring back things that we were taught not to do, like daydreaming. If you can sit and daydream for an hour or two, that daydreaming brings you into that altered state of consciousness, and that's one of the things we're trying to attain. So all those bad things that we were taught when we were growing up by our parents, you know, we're going to have to relearn them. It's a bit like Picasso having to learn how to draw like a child again. I mean, he could draw a photorealistic portrait of someone at the age of 12. He had to teach himself how to draw like a child again. So it's very similar here. We have to reteach ourselves how to do certain things that we were taught not to do in our childhood. But yep, anyway, that's moving meditation, walking meditation. If you do a walk daily, then start practicing this. Bring it into your daily walk, and see how it goes, see how you feel. And if you getting any benefit out of these videos, please hit the like button. It helps the algorithm to reach more people who may benefit from it. And please like, share, and definitely subscribe if you're getting benefit out of this, and hit the notification bell so that you know when I release new videos. And that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers for now.